I have Julia Choi, violinist with the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, June. This
Oh,
is so
my pleasure. So
so
it's
nice to finally meet you like this.
oh, I'm so glad I get to see you in person somewhat.
Hmm.
Well, so as a violinist, this whole year has been really unfortunate for musicians all across the board. But you have maintained positivity, and I've been seeing your posts on Instagram, and you've had some exciting collaborations, it seems. So I'm very interested to ask you all about it. How has your violin practice changed since last year? I know this is probably a question.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a complete change where my colleagues and I were just scrambling for time and running around from this to that and running out of time. And so practicing has become a little more irregular, to say the least. And I haven't been keeping up with as strict of a schedule, but instead, I've been picking up the violin whenever I really want to practice or learn something new.
Yeah.
And so before I got my job at the Met, all I was doing was practicing. And I'm not sure that this was really the healthiest way of living for me or for anybody. And so I was practicing my excerpt lists nonstop, like until I was employed. And come to think of it, for 24 years, there has always been a deadline and a looming due date. And so now that we're all kind of living this pause, it's been an interesting time for me to see what I'm really gravitating towards and away from, and to really define the things that really mean the most to me. And it's surely been an eye-opening time to have this time to figure myself out more as a person also.
Wow.
And at the start of the pandemic around a year ago, I found myself scrambling to set goals and thinking that ambition was the answer. And I made a list of short pieces that I never got around to learn and tried to learn a bunch of them. And I revisited my solo Bach, of course, and finally sat down to learn some Izai for the first time in my life. Um, but I was pretty exhausted by these and just some of the other unrealistic expectations that I set for myself. And then in the beginning, as early as May of 2020, I was invited to be in some exciting video collaborations with friends and colleagues. And then there were also times where I didn't feel like practicing at all. And it's a difficult time to stay motivated, especially without any goals or performances at the end of all the hard work. And I was so used to having a deadline that with all this newfound freedom and time, I've taken on the habit of just keeping a practice journal and in learning to make my own goals and timelines. So, yeah, I've been keeping up with my basics and practicing my technique as much as I can. And I do feel the most myself when I play a couple of notes in a day. So I try to pick up the violin as much as I can. And so we do have this more freedom and fluctuation during this time in terms of the repertoire we choose and the amount of time we decide to put into practicing. But I think that the way I approach new pieces or practice my technique and basics have pretty much stayed the same. All in all, I would say that the practice methods haven't changed, but there has been more room for flexibility and self-reflection and experimentation in my playing and practicing due to all this freedom we gained during this time.
Yeah. Would you say you're happier as a musician, like with this newfound freedom and the balance that you didn't have the luxury of having before just because of time constraints?
I would say so in a way. I mean, I do miss playing with my colleagues and, collaborating with people in real life more often, but I do think that we have all this time to set aside for ourselves and to figure out what we want to play. And, there's just never enough time to do things for ourselves,
Right.
in music or, in real life things. So it's been nice to have more time for sure.
Hmm. Great.